It is a huge day for NFL news. Micah Parsons is no longer a Dallas Cowboy, and Mike Pennel is no longer a Kansas City Chief. We're going to talk about one of those things at great length. I'll let you guess who's who. Welcome into Only Weird Games. Joshua Brisco, Seth Keysor, and Nate Taylor of ESPN. It's on his driver's license now, folks. I've seen it. Legally changed his name, but on a social security card. I don't know why you let me see that, but I've seen it. It really has been a wild hour or so, the trade that we all kind of were waiting on, but I don't know if anybody really thought it was going to happen until Jerry Jones really got involved, I guess. Great work down there, Dallas. You guys are on fire. Micah Parsons is a Green Bay Packer. Mike Pennel on the market and on Instagram stories, and the Chiefs are doing something with their defensive tackle room right now. I think we all have a lot of questions about what that something is exactly. But before we get to that, probably in the second half of today's show, we got another dose of massive news yesterday. After about 30 minutes of very strange reporting, we then got some very clear reporting. It's as simple as 6 games for Rashee Rice. He'll be out the first 6 weeks of the NFL season. I don't need Nate. Sorry, I'm not going to make you comment on how any of that went or who was involved. But just another like weird entry into the NFL's looking for at least 6. But all of the tenses of all of that were very strange. Ultimately, they not long after 6 games comes down. There will be no arbitration hearing for that. After 4 weeks of the NFL season, the Rashee Rice suspension is set. It's settled. It's 6 games. It explains why the Chiefs kept 8 wide receivers on their initial 53-man roster, which did get finalized well after we wrapped up Tuesday's show. We were not close to having the full roster. We would have just gone a little longer. So obviously, the Rashee Rice news is the biggest of all. Nate, you've been following and doing good reporting on this story throughout. It's a conclusion on that front. What came together on Wednesday? What don't we already know, if anything, about the Rashee Rice suspension? Everybody lands on 6 games. We're moving
on. Thank you, Kenny. Look, man, we all aspire to be on time and punctual. So, look, appreciate what we have. I'm still trying to wrap my head around Micah Parsons in a Packers uniform. But thank you, Josh, because hopefully now that this has reached its conclusion with Rashee Rice, I hope people respect and appreciate the way we try to inform people along the way, along the process, the journey, to give you some insight. Basically, everything that we talked about from all 3 of us kind of played out based on what we were telling you before Wednesday. So, it's so funny. Once you get to cut down day, that is one of the major true deadlines as to get your bleep in order, get your house cleaned up, prepare it very nicely, and let's get ready to host thousands of people into our building for a football game that actually counts, and we would actually like to look nice. So you saw that happen with Terry McLaurin from the Commanders. You saw that happen with Trey Hendrickson with the Bengals. Micah Parsons left the Cowboys, guys, and there was talk around the league that he's getting a second opinion on his knee, when I think in reality he wasn't coming back, kids. So one of the true parts about cut down day, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen,
bless you. You're outside. Let it sneeze. Let the particles fly.
Yeah, dang it, allergies. So the Chiefs made their roster decisions, which we all know now. 8 receivers, essentially 7 receivers, which is essentially 6 receivers, because it doesn't look like Jalen Royals is going to be a rotational player Friday night next week in Sao Paulo against the Chargers. We'll get more from that on Andy Reid, but that's the way this is trending, is that Jalen Rose is most likely not going to be available. So deadline day, the NFL saying we got to do this. We cannot get it. We cannot let it go to September 30th. I know Seth will probably talk a little bit about the lawyer fees and reaching a conclusion financially that makes the most sense. There is no guarantee, and I remember saying this to Carrington on 96.5 The Fan yesterday. I would have been, I guess, one of the few people to advise Rashee Rice to take it all the way to September 30th. But there's no guarantee that if you do that, if you go to the disciplinary hearing with Sue Robinson, that you are going to get 4 games or 5 games, less than 6. So if you're not willing to risk that, and the team is advising you, you're going to be suspended. The easiest way to handle the suspension is to start it now, let your body heal up. Obviously, you're still coming off a knee injury. The first 6 games of the season, we hope, from a Chiefs perspective, do not matter. And, we anticipate you being a big part of the offense in the second half of the season, because we knew you were either going to miss 4, 6, or 8 games, somewhere in there. So a lot of forces, I think, pushed Rashee Rice to make this decision, which is completely understandable. And there's a second part that I want to get to that I haven't shared elsewhere, guys. But
exclusive only weird games stuff. I like it.
Yeah, that's everything that led up to the decision where you say, hey, okay, 6 games kind of reestablishes a new precedent for personal conduct policy issues as it relates to speeding, right? So for all the people concerned about what Jordan Addison got, 3 games, obviously on video, obviously you plead, obviously you have to still do 30 days in jail at some point in the next 5 years. There was no guarantee. Even if you played amazing football for 4 weeks, there was no guarantee that it was going to be like, oh, well, it's a 4-game suspension, and oh, by the way, you get to come back in week 9 or week 10, somewhere in there. And who knows? Hey, you might still get to play against the Buffalo Bills. Well, taking the suspension now does guarantee him that he will get to play against the Raiders in week 7. And obviously, one of the bigger games of the season is Chiefs at Bills. And so that doesn't complicate things. And it doesn't really it shouldn't complicate the Chiefs' offensive plan for weeks 1 through 6 and then moving forward with him.
Seth, before we get Nate's extra little scoop and details there, anything strike you about 6 games and the process that got there?
I mean, you can't compare it directly to some of the things that have already gone on. And so, I mean, now we know the league wanted 10, they wanted 12, they wanted whatever. It's a calculated risk, right? I just helped send a dude to prison for 46 months. The reason he pled is because if it went to trial, he was facing 100 months. Like these are the calculated risks that you take. I don't send people to prison lightly, by the way. That case would horrify you. But that's the analogy. Is that you've got a calculated risk when you're represented and you're negotiating. You've got a sure thing. And what I used to tell clients when I represented people on the defense side is it really is true that a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. Like having a sure result, knowing what will happen, there's a lot of value in that. And the reality is, yeah, you've got an arbitrator that you can go to, but the ultimate decision maker still says NFL on his cap. And that's a really risky thing to do. And so I think the league had kind of reached a point where they wanted to resolve it. With Rashee Rice, it does make sense in terms of health. I'm glad Nate touched on that. To do it during the first 6 weeks. He looks great. He looked explosive in preseason. He looks fine. But you know what? Just get fully healthy. Trust that knee, and then just come on strong in the final part of the season. He's missing a really important stretch of games. I always tell people now, I'm not a risk taker, generally speaking. I will almost always take the sure thing. There's a reason
They've advised Rashee Rice to stop being a risk taker.
Yeah, that's good advice. There's a reason why my lovely wife Jazz, I don't know if I've mentioned that lately, but my wife is gorgeous and wonderful and maybe watching right now.
Full day since I've heard about her. We didn't talk yesterday.
Yeah, I know. That's this. I texted you just to say, "Hey, Josh," at 1 a.m. So she makes
folks, you'd be shocked at how true to life that is. Shocked,
Yeah.
I tell you.
Now, people think that these are bits, but it's like, no, this is just what we do. And it annoys Josh, and I
Under
love
duress
it.
often. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not saying you want this life. It's just this is the life that chose you, man. And so
Sure is.
Jazz likes to make fun of me sometimes because she's someone that when we go to a restaurant, she'll order something new. You know, she'll want to try out a new restaurant. She'll try to try out these new things. And for me, I'm like, yeah, I really know what I liked last time. Like if I go to Joe's Kansas City barbecue, I know what I'm ordering every single time. And do I miss out on some experiences that way? Yes. But do I get a 9.9 out of 10 every time? I do. And so that's what it's essentially a plea agreement. I think he's smart for doing it. It's nice that the Chiefs now, I like the way that this was phrased to me by someone else, that they don't have to reinvent their offense twice this year. They have to reinvent it once. You're starting off without Rashee Rice, and then he comes in, and that's kind of nice because as the real football, 6 games in. Nate, when does real football start?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so glad Seth asked that, because as I look at the calendar now, usually, ladies and gentlemen, I would say real football starts right around Thanksgiving, right around that week 12, week 13 range, where you could tell the leaves have fallen. You're not going to just sling this ball around like it's freaking September where it's fireworks. You see what's going on in the division. You see what's going on in the standings. It becomes an actual race for the 1 seed. All those things. This year, for interesting reasons, depending on how both of these two teams play, real football can begin on, that's right, week 9, November 2nd, in Archery Park, Chiefs versus Bills. The 1 seed could be determined largely based on that game. And so for this year, it's like a little appetizer of real football, Seth, because if you look at the Chiefs schedule, which I'm looking at it now, you hope to beat the Bills, but you don't have to beat the Bills, which is what I've always said before. Then you have a bye week. Then you have the Broncos. Might be interesting. Then you have the Colts. Hopefully Anthony Richardson is playing by then, and then you have the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, and somewhere.
That's right, Nate. Real football begins on Thanksgiving, and so
yeah. So, oh my God, does Patrick Mahomes just realize that Micah Parsons not going to chase him this season?
He's got to be thrilled.
Not until the Super Bowl.
So there's no Parsons on Thanksgiving. And the Packers might make the Super Bowl. That, by the way, we could talk about that at some point. But with the Rice issue, this is a situation where you reinvent your offense one time. It allows you to try some things out. Honestly, hey, Tyquan Thornton, you had a great preseason.
And Seth, I'm going to stop you there because Nate's got a nugget that you completely forgot about. And we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the game plan without Rashee Rice, because that's rundown topic number 2. But we're not ready for rundown topic number 2 yet. We're at number 1 because I need to know about Nate's nugget.
Ooh.
Okay, kids, here we go. Thank you, Josh. Nice little tease. We're going full circle. Shout out to that dog over there.
Not Maple today.
Go.
Nate's outside.
Not Maple.
Near other dogs.
Not Maple. Yeah, they're dogs. Yeah.
Okay, quiet on set. I'm going to give us an edit point for the social clip of this video and marker.
Go. Perfect. You have to think about this, guys. The Chiefs, let's say for the past 6 months, have loved everything Rashee Rice has done. I want you to think about that. Really, really think about it. For the last 6 months, Rashee Rice has admitted guilt, changed some of his attitude, changed some of his crew, changed some of his behavior, been dedicated to the job. Rehab went really, really well. Had another, and this is somewhat surprised as I say this, had another amazing training camp. As Seth said, looked great on Friday. And you know what? When your employer tells you to do something, sometimes it's nice to just do that. The employer has advised you, like Seth said, hey man, we've had a plan since and I reported this yesterday on ESPN.com. hey, man, since the first day of training camp, we know what option B is without you. So we're going to practice that, leading all the way up to potentially you be suspended. So you know what? It's probably wise for the both of us for us to just take our medicine. So you know what? He going to take his medicine, and if he does what he's supposed to do for the next 7 weeks, guess what, kids? They're going to love this man even more. Starting today, and really yesterday, because Rashee Rice wasn't at practice, although the official suspension was post yesterday's practice, but they just said, hey, for all intents and purposes, just start serving your time now. For the next 7 weeks, obviously, watch your boys. He can still do some things with the team, is what I was told, but obviously he can't practice. Not going to be obviously on the field. I'm not sure he'll do his jail time, guys, during the 6 weeks. Doesn't seem necessary. That's why they have the whole off season.
Real quick interjection on that front, because I've seen people ask about it too.
Yeah.
If we're talking about like staying in the best possible football shape and rehabbing from your knee, I would like you to not be in prison during that window.
Correct.
Check that off in the late winter, early
It's like
spring.
you've never seen any prison movies. Dude,
fair enough. Actually, maybe he'd come back even more yoked. That's a good point.
Got traps.
I don't
like
know.
Really gay. Just like
I don't know how many orthoscopic knee
look.
surgeons they have in there or anything that might know, but I guess there's probably a couple.
Yeah.
Your employer would like for you to trade somewhere that isn't prison for the next 6
or
to 7
Dallas,
weeks.
maybe.
Hey, there's a reason I said not prison. Okay. So we all understand this. Lastly, let's say he comes back. He's as good as advertised. He didn't do anything stupid. He continues to be an advocate. He continues to do some community service work. He continues to be a good teammate. Let's say they have success. Guys, there's a playbook for both Rashee Rice and the Chiefs. And you know what? It just so happened that during the 2019 season, something also happened to the Chiefs' best receiver. Now, I'm asking you guys, both the audience and my lovely co-host, do you guys remember what happened right before the season, like right around this time during the 2019 season? Does anybody remember?
I remember. And
go ahead, Seth. Tell the audience.
Well, Mr. Tyreek Hill had found himself swirling amidst a number of rumors. It's, you know what, we don't need to go into all of it. That kept the team very away from him for a while, where they were like, nope. And then some things kind of came to light.
Yep.
They told like, okay, Patrick Mahomes can be seen with you again. And
they told
after
Tyreek,
that happened,
bro. The audio just came out. Hey, bro, why don't you go down to Miami? Why don't you go train? See you when the season starts. See you at training camp. He basically served a team advised suspension for the entirety of most of the offseason of the 2019 year. But go ahead, Seth. Continue.
And then once he was able to come back, the Chiefs, one might call in opportunistic fashion, said, hey, you know what costs a lot of money? Legal troubles. And we're really nice people. And we were thinking, what if you just signed a contract now instead of in a year or two when we could give you a contract? Next year, yeah, sure, you could make, $1 million or whatever your next year's. Or what if we gave you $20 million a year and handed you a $20 million check? No, don't look at that. What is that?
Right
the market? Don't look at the market. Stop looking at the market, Tyreek. And that's what they did. Don't look at the market. Don't look at the wide receiver market. Don't look at your stats next to these guys. How about instead, you just take this big fat check that'll make all your problems go away.
Now remember, this is football. People get hurt. So you might want to do this now. Just for your benefit and for our benefit. You might want to.
Oh, will this help us out? I'm
because
looking at
yes,
that will help us out.
Because of the implications. Because this is football, and people get hurt. You might want to.
What is he going to say? No.
Early.
No. He would never say
because
no.
of what? Because of what, Seth?
Because of the implication.
Because of the implications. So, ladies and gentlemen, Tyreek Hill did take that deal in a dark room somewhere that we haven't seen footage of. And so, at signing, he was the 15th highest receiver in the league. 15th highest paid receiver. Criminal, one might argue.
And that was coming off of 27 and 2018. That was unbelievable for him.
Unbelievable. Okay? Stats that were video game like. All right. Now, if I go to just a little tool called Over the Cap and I just do some simple arithmetic, guys, you want to guess what the 15th highest paid receiver's making right now? Because it's not 40 million and it ain't 30 either.
I'm guessing 21, 22.
It feels right.
Are we ready, ladies? Are we ready, gentlemen? Guys, that is roughly around 25 million a year.
That is
next year, Rashee Rice's base salary, which is something that matters more than his dead cap hit when we're talking about the cash spending of it all. $1.5 million next year. That will bring him to about $6.5 million over the course of his entire rookie contract. And obviously that's before taxes. And some of the like settlements are out publicly now.
Yeah.
I feel like the writing isn't just on the wall. They're like flashing neon signs on the wall of keep everything in line. Let's have a nice 10 games, 11 games in a playoff push. And we're going to get you a deal. It's going to be good for you. We're going to get you a deal. It's going to be good for us. And this marriage can continue as long as everybody's just like smart for a little while. And it seems like that's the track they're on.
Yeah. Devontae Smith makes $25 million a year. He is the 15th highest receiver in the league in terms of being paid annually.
And that's crazy because that also seems like about right. Usually I feel like it's like Devontae. Like, I get it.
No, he's very good at football.
He's very good, but he's not top 10. It makes sense.
And it's worth noting when considering Rashee Rice, when you're talking about, everything going right, everything going well, we're talking about, and just so week 12 of 2023 through week 3 of 2024. Okay. And we talked about this before when I wrote about why the hype around Rashee Rice is justified. People talk about, oh man, he really came on in 2024. Man, he came on in the second half of 2023. We talked about this. His quantity of targets went up. His quality of targets went up. He was the centerpiece of the offense. And from everything I've seen, they think he's a legit wide receiver one. They think he can do everything.
He looks the part, kids.
Yep. And he's just
say it out loud
every year. This is what it was. Week 12 of 2023 through week 3 of 2024. Remember, that's 13 games. This isn't a tiny sample size. It also includes great teams in the playoffs that are trying to beat you with like no help around you other than Kelsey. 9.1 targets a game, 7.1 catches a game, 82.1 yards per game. 82.1 yards per game is 1,000,000% wide receiver one production. In 9 times out of 10 scenarios, if he put up numbers like that down the stretch this season, there is no way he would agree to a team-friendly deal after this year because his agent would say, dude, bet on yourself, blah, blah, blah. In this scenario, and that's where, and look, this is the way it works, right? You make it bonus heavy and you say, hey, look, you know what would be great? Today, you could walk out of this room with $15 million. Or you could walk out of this room with your $1.5 million next year, and we'll still love you, and it'll be great next year. Football is a dangerous sport. It sure would be a shame. And I'm not saying it's entirely fair how all this works, but he did kind of do some of this to himself too. So there you go. I fully expect all of this to go down, and I honestly think when Rashee comes back, I think people are going to be. When I looked at how he looked in the preseason, I think people are going to be shocked at how productive he is with a rejuvenated Kelsey, second-year Worthy, a decent offensive line. I think people are going to be shocked at how productive he is.
They got to get there first, though, and I know real football doesn't start until around Thanksgiving, but that Week 4 Ravens-Chiefs game at Arrowhead feels relevant to me. The first 6 weeks of the season do show up in the standings. We'll take a timeout, come back. We will get to the Mike Pennel and defensive tackle thing and all that as well, but we'll take a quick timeout, come back, and then Seth's going to tell us how the Chiefs' offense is going to continue to function. And Seth is going to tell us definitively, even in those 6 weeks without Rashee Rice. We'll do that next.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your #1 source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
I'm Brett Goodwin, one of the owners of The Learning Tree. The Learning Tree is a neighborhood toy store in Prairie Village, Kansas. This has been here in this location since 2000s, and my husband Alan and I purchased the store in 2023. Alan and I grew up in families where we've always wanted to have a business together. Alan grew up, for instance, his parents had a jewelry store. I worked in a local toy store here in Prairie Village when I was growing up. When this opportunity happened in 2023, we knew right away we wanted to contact them and pursue the store. We wouldn't have been able to get the store without the team at Emprise Bank. From the day we contacted them, they knew what we needed to do, which was very helpful. I would absolutely recommend the team at Emprise Bank to anyone looking to secure a business. We worked with Emprise from day one. They were extremely helpful. They were always great resources. We talk to them frequently. They know the area. They're very friendly. We know who we're going to talk with, and they know what we need to do. We hope we'll see you at the Learning Tree.
What's good, everybody? It is Benny Heiss, KCSN betting analyst, and I just want to let you all know that it's okay. You can take a slow, deep breath. Inhale and breathe out with one word: football. You feeling it? Yeah? Did you take that in? That sweet, sweet scent of grass and pigskin in? I'm ready. I hope you're ready too, because we're going to have an absolutely awesome season once again together. And especially for all of you in the state of Missouri, get your popcorn, get your phones ready, because the wait is almost over. You can taste it. It's coming, people. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is coming. You say, show me. I say, state. Later this football season, everything that you love about playing on DraftKings Sportsbook, sides, totals, spreads, props, same-game parlays, you name it, DraftKings Sportsbook is going to elevate your already great game day experience here with KCSN. And even if you don't get in by kickoff, no sweat, besides the promos on DraftKings that they offer as well, there's live in-game betting, payouts, faster than Xavier Worthy hauling down a bomb from 15 on the sidelines, all right from the comfort of your phone, wherever, whenever. You'll be betting with a top-rated sportsbook that is safe, secure, and trusted by millions of Americans across the country. Now, here's what you do. Follow your guy. You download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Be sure to use code KCSN as you get ready for sports betting to launch here in the state of Missouri. You're going to be the first in line for exclusive promos, can't miss offers, much, much more. It's code KCSN. That is KCSN in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus, physically present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Terms at DraftKings.com/sportsbook. Subject to regulatory licensing requirements.
So let's look ahead a little bit here now with Rashee Rice. You've written about it in the Chief of the North newsletter, Seth. I feel like there are kind of two main schools of thought you'd like to see the Chiefs tinker around with a little bit in Rice's absence. What do you like? What do you think makes the most sense with this current build of the roster?
I think the quickest and simplest thing to talk about is role replacement stuff. And a lot of people want to talk about Jalen Royals with that, which I understand, but he's probably not going to be playing week 1. He's a rookie. I do like some of the overlapping skill set. I will say with Royals, he's looked explosive prior to getting hurt. And so all that stuff, but he's hurt. So there you go. We've already have a guy that has shown he can do down the stretch last year, Rashee Rice light in terms of some of the quick game stuff. And that's Xavier Worthy. People will talk about Juju Smith-Schuster, and there's some stuff there in terms of finding soft spots for zones and whatever. But the Rashee Rice stuff that was the Rashee Rice stuff in 2023 that made up the bulk of his stuff, especially early, the quick stuff to the flat, the wide receiver screens, the little slant stuff, the tunnel stuff, and around, whatever, right? Get the ball in his hands and he's explosive. That all makes sense for Xavier Worthy. No one else can do that as well as he can on the roster currently. The only person with remotely the explosion, Hollywood Brown has never really been that type of player. And Tyquan Thornton's never really been asked to play that kind of role. So, I mean, they're both explosive, but again, they've never been asked to do that. Worthy has shown he can do it. So that's first things first. Some of the easy button stuff, and you saw it against the Bears, for example, a quick 9-yard gain. They motion Worthy out of the backfield. And when they see that it's man coverage and they've got numbers for a split second, I'm just going to throw it to you. And even though the blocking wasn't amazing, you're so fast, you're still going to get 7 to 9 easy yards. That's Xavier Worthy. The thing that's more intriguing to me is, what are they going to do personnel-wise? I don't think it makes sense to just trot out, 11 personnel with Xavier Worthy, Tyquan Thornton, and Juju Smith-Schuster, and say, well, we're just going to put Juju in the Rice role on non-easy button plays and just do the same thing. For me, what makes the most sense is the same thing that I'm always pushing for, it seems like every year for the last couple of years, which it's every year where they've had problems at wide receiver. You know what the Chiefs have right now? They have 4 tight ends that they are comfortable putting on the field. They have 3 tight ends. Oh, go.
Just a little thing because we didn't talk about it. Jake Briningstool going to IR with the designation to return is weirdly incredibly interesting to me.
Yes.
He would be the 5th tight end when he comes back. I don't know if that's just some Bob Tonyan roster math, if that's a lack of belief in Jared Wiley. I figured sorry, Seth, this is not necessarily related to the Rashee Rice thing. He won't be out there for at least the first 4 weeks. But the fact that they designated him to return as a rookie instead of just making him like the IR mystery stash kind of thing was really surprising to me. Nate, you're nodding. You want to give anything other than or just a noise, and then we can let Seth go back to his thing. I just made some mention of that.
I also noticed this, and my read on it is they're still very high on the player. There's a chance maybe he could be in the mix. Not just on practice squad if things are going great in like week 5 or week 6, right? But again, this is a little bit of Jared Wiley insurance coming off the ACL.
Yep.
But I believe they guaranteed more than $500,000 to retain Briningstool's services when he was like one of the top free agents on the market post draft. Now look, he had the hamstring. That was one way to ensure that he was going to stick around. And I think what we're noticing in a small way, lastly, is kind of like the 2022 season, the Chiefs also had 4 tight ends, I believe. Is that right? Yeah, Travis, you had Jody Fortson, you had Noah Gray, and you had Blake Bell, if my memory's correct. And guess what, kids? They had the best tight end room in the league, and all 4 of those guys were contributors to the team returning and winning the Super Bowl. So you might see a similar part of the not only the scheme evaluation, but trying to put an importance on that with, again, Travis Kelce going to be 36 in October, and Jared Wiley coming off the ACL, not having played a full season himself in the NFL.
Teams talk all the time when you sign an undrafted free agent. All you hear is, well, these teams love these guys they just signed or drafted or whatever. But when you get one that gets kind of a rare roster spot or a rare designation like that, like they didn't try to send Felix that way. It just Najee Johnson was the other, by the way, who's not on the active 53, but could return after 4 weeks. That's a new thing this year that I learned about last week, kind of embarrassingly. I completely missed that rule change. Anyway, sorry, Seth. 4 tight ends are in the mix right now. Tonyan looked great in the preseason. So back to where the offense goes without Rice now.
And so right now what the Chiefs have is 1 healthy. Now Hollywood Brown, my understanding, is on track to play in week 1.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. And so but really, I mean, we'll see. But right now you've got 1 healthy, proven guy in Xavier Worthy. That's it. And that it says something about proven that, or a strong rookie season that only got better as it went along, is what's considered proven right now. Now, hey, Tyquan Thornton had a great preseason, had an excellent training camp, and I want to talk about him in a minute. But in terms of personnel stuff, you have Juju Smith-Schuster, who you trust, but who's not explosive. So you can add Juju to the mix there. But you know what you do have? You have 4 tight ends that you trust to be on the field. 3 in particular, because Jared Wiley, I think, is more so-so. You have 3 tight ends that you can line up on the line or in the slot, or in the case of Gray and Kelsey, not as much with Tunyon, out wide on the boundary.
I thought you were going to say in the backfield, which also Gray has done.
Yeah, in the backfield with Gray, you can do all sorts of stuff with them. And here's the deal. When you have the ability to do that, you have the ability to dictate how the other team plays. Here's something that's different about the Chiefs this year. If we're talking about 12 and 13 personnel, Kingsley Suamataia had a rough preseason overall. He had a better last game. One area that he was good all preseason was pile moving and people moving. He looked comfortable when he was asked to fire off the ball and just let's get nuts. You know who else looked good at that? Josh Simmons. We know Creed Humphrey's good at that. We know Trey Smith is good at that. This might be, if things work out the way they looked in preseason, the best run blocking group they've had in a while in total. And if you're in 13 personnel or even 12 personnel, that puts the usual stress on the defense. Okay, man, they're in 13. All right, we need all the defensive linemen, all the linebackers. Hey, why are they spreading everyone out? And now all of a sudden, let's say if you're in 13 personnel and that running back is Brashard Smith. Well, he's in man and space against a guy who normally plays Mike. Like, it just can become a real problem there. And okay, no, we're going to stay skinny. Let's run the ball down your throat then, because we can do it. And it looked like they had the ability to do it, whether that's 12 or 13 personnel. And what else does that allow you to do? It takes some of these guys off the field. It means that you're getting these personal matchup advantages, and you're not asking Tyquan Morton to be Rashee Rice. You're not asking Juju Smith-Schuster to be Rashee Rice. And you can still threaten down the field to an extent. That's one of the things that I loved about the last preseason game. They ran a deep shot design play to Kelsey, where you have Worthy coming across the top, and then you have Kelsey coming on a deep crosser, to where you're kind of doing kind of a levels concept. And you're doing that out of play action with 13 personnel. That's awesome, because they can't help themselves. Those linebackers, man, they can't help themselves with an under center play action look at a 13 personnel.
I got to fill the gap. Holy smokes.
Yeah. And so that, to me, the Chiefs really, they've been efficient out of 12 and 13 for years because of the change. This is like the one area where you could say there's an argument that there's a possibility. And Joe Thuney's a fine run blocker. He's just not a pile mover. Some of that gap and power stuff, some of that just straight ahead, that's not his thing, and that's fine. Joe Thuney is a much better player than Kingsley Suamataia. Everyone knows it. Straight ahead, we're slamming into you for 6 yards until you overcommit right here. That's the one area that Suamataia might be an upgrade. And Simmons is certainly an upgrade. That's a big deal.
Yeah, and don't forget play action, bootleg stuff in red zone, short yardage situations based on that personnel grouping.
Absolutely. There's so many things that you can do from that when you have multiple guys you trust. One of the problems that they've had consistently is since Blake Bell left, weirdly enough, like Robert Tunyon, you know what Tunyon is? A slightly better pass catching Blake Bell. He's a good blocker. And like, I love Jody Fordson. I love the things he brings. Jared Wiley, did the things he could, but they can't line up in line. Gray, Kelsey, and Tunyon all can line up on the line. Kelsey's not an amazing run blocker at this point, but you know what he almost always does? His job. He almost always walls off, even if it looks ugly. And we'll let the young guy and the bigger guy do the pile pushing. You can do those things out of 13 and 12, and it protects your wide receiver personnel. And it also allows you to utilize that wide receiver personnel in a way that maybe makes a little more sense in terms of play action, shot play type looks. Because you know what you can do with this current wide receiver group, and this goes from personnel to game plan, you can go vertical. Thornton has shown he can go vertical. I'm interested in seeing what it looks like. When was the last time the Chiefs had 2 wide receivers on the field simultaneously that you felt comfortable lining them each up on the boundary with goes and thinking, man, both safeties, I mean, they got to play split field and they got to go and open up that middle of the field for Hollywood Brown. It's been a minute, and Thornton looks like he's able to do it. Now, we'll see again when the snaps become real. I would love to see them. I would. So it almost probably sounds like two in opposite things. Like, I want them to do more heavy personnel, but I also want them to be more vertical with the offense. And that's the thing. If, again, you could only have 2 wide receivers on the field at once, well, if it's Tyquan Thornton or Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy, let's do some under center play action boots and just have them outrun the guys that are left on an island because they got to stack the box. Those are things that you can do. And then you experiment with them, see how they work. And then when Rashee Rice comes back, you get back to what your original plan was. But you know what you've learned? What other things you have in your pocket with everyone else. So that's what I would do. It's not a fix-all. You're never going to replace a guy like Rashee Rice. But I do think they have the personnel to do some things. Remember in 2022 where it was like when Pacheco looked healthy, which he looks again this year, and the line was better. You know, Orlando Brown was able to run block pretty well. They were able to move piles a little bit better in 2022. They were able to run the ball when they wanted to, and they did more that year. It would be interesting to see them do a little bit more of that. Now it's Andy Reid. It's never going to be a lot, but just a little more, just a little more, and then utilize that to get vertical. And now you might be able to have efficiency mixed with big plays.
All right, let's get to the thing that people are here for.
Ah, crap.
What the heck's going on at defensive tackle right now? Here's where I'll give you all the setup and the catch up if you haven't been playing along at home. Right now, the Chiefs 53-man roster has 4 defensive tackles on it, which historically speaking is not a huge number. One of those is Chris Jones, which is exciting. One of those is Jerry Tillery. One of those is Derek Nottie, who wasn't here a week ago. And the other one is Omar Norman Lott, who's been battling an ankle injury all since the very near the start of training camp. He appears to be perhaps between a transition between being more of a 3-tech and 1-tech. He's putting on weight at least. Again, just sort of like a transitory time for Norman Lott. Not sure. And again, an injured time, although I think I don't know what his status has been at practice so far, Nate, in terms of how much he's done there.
He was out. Omar Norman Lott was out there yesterday. Now, because we're back in non-training camp St. Joe.
Don't say anything else. That's fine.
we can't see or say everything. But he did some individual work is probably the best way I can describe it.
And obviously, he was still practicing in training camp. Then he re-aggravated it in the second preseason game. Marlon Tuipulotu is back on the practice squad. The practice squad has several defensive tackles. I wanted to mention 2 new names to the Chiefs that I think is kind of interesting. 2 former 2023 third-round picks. Zach Pickens went 64 overall to the Bears. Broderick Martin went 96 overall to the Lions. 25 and 26 years old, respectively. So some younger players there compared to the guys they have been working with. I will also say, if you're expecting other NFL teams to be so bad at this that they cut bait on 2 day 2 draft picks while they were like definitely starter quality players, this is a reclamation project for a reason. Maybe that'll work out. But the name that is nowhere to be found on the Chiefs' active roster or practice squad is Mike Pennel. Nate, I will let you fact check me on this one in a second if I'm wrong, but Mike Pennel has essentially been the guy penciled in next to Chris Jones on this defensive line as effectively a starter. Not a 60% of the snaps kind of guy, but your starting, run down, run stuffing defensive tackle. And the most recent thing we've heard from Mike Pennel was him posting a clip from The Dark Knight on his Instagram story with the Joker in front of a pile of burning money, where he says, it's not about the money, it's about sending a message. Everything burns. And right now, Mike Pennel is not on a roster or a practice squad. They traded for Derek Nottie with like a late pick swap. It was basically what they got for swapping Sky Moore around. And Mike Pennell's not on any of the rosters right now. I could have understood it as the Robert Tonyan type of roster manipulation. But then, Nate, you got to talk to Brett Veach a little bit today, and I know that came up. I don't know. I don't know what to make of all of this. I know where Seth is at. I know where you're at, I think. But how do you want to bring people along on what's going on or what's not going on with Mike Pennel right now?
All right, I'm going to give a couple examples and then get to my thought. As we told you guys before, maybe in the Times R's iteration, that like again, weeks 1 through 6, 1 through 8 do not matter to Steve Spagnuolo. That's why he's not playing Willie Gay, right? Because the first third of the season is mostly experimenting and shits and giggles. We've told you before that, like, hey, you might not like why the Chiefs don't run the football as much, but obviously we have Josh to tell you that Travis Kelce is a souped up version of establishing a running game, establishing a presence, getting a rhythm down. There's been times in the past where we've explained to you guys in great detail why Patrick Mahomes should be respected more. Obviously, that's what Seth has tried to get across to you guys, and we hope that y'all understand our viewpoints, where we're coming from, the reporting, the analysis, the insight. Sometimes I'll say something, and I know it won't help fans, even though I'm trying to inform you guys as best I can. A lot of times what the Chiefs do may not make you happy, but there's a rhyme and a reason to it, and you try to explain it as best you can. Guys, I don't know what they're doing with this. This is one of the few times I can look at these people who get paid handsomely to do this for a living. What the hell are y'all doing?
Oh, boy.
It doesn't make any sense to me why you would take someone who clearly is beloved in the locker room, who clearly wants to be here, who's still very good at his job in comparison to his age, has helped you win Super Bowls, has helped you get 2 Super Bowls, played well in the past 2 Super Bowls. Why you would not manipulate the roster?
Played more than Derek Nottie on this defense last year.
And was more important. Yes, and better. So I don't understand, and it doesn't make any sense. And so I'm going to try. But Seth, tell me what you're feeling, because I talk like Josh says, we talk to Brett Veach. We do it every year after cut down day, after they sign everybody to the practice squad. Again, hey, I told you guys at training camp, guys, I love Kadarius Toney. He's one talented young man. He not gonna be here. And guess what? He wasn't here this time last year. No one with eyes thought that Mike Pennel wasn't going to be on this roster. So I don't know how you feel, Seth, but it's hard. I don't have logic to explain this. I have a theory that I can get to here in a minute, but I don't have sound logic.
For me, it's the process that doesn't make sense. I don't understand. And my understanding is now it's been reported by you and elsewhere that, he did pursue a few other defensive tackles that teams decided to hang on to. So it doesn't sound like going back to Derek Nottie was necessarily their first choice, which if I were Derek Nottie, I'd be like, man, they released that quickly. But it just is what it is.
I think Derek Nottie knows that, though. And Derek Nottie, who gave a shout out yesterday to Mike Pennel, realizes, man, another year in the league. Let me just be grateful. Let me just be happy. I know everybody in the building.
You know who was saying stuff like that pretty recently about what a blessing it is to have another year in the league and know everyone in the building, because you never know. Mike Pennel. So here's this is where the process doesn't make sense to me. The year ends. Derek Nottie hits free agency. The Chiefs, not like immediately or anything like that, they sign Big Mike to an extension or just another year.
Yeah, another one-year deal.
It's not a significant one. Derek Nottie eventually signs with the Jets for not much. So the Chiefs could have easily just done this, easily, with similar contracts. They could have done this. They chose not to, which made sense to me at the time, because Nottie, who is also, I think, beloved in the locker room, who is also a guy that a lot of people really like, he hasn't been as stout against the run the last few years as Mike Pennel has. And so they made a decision that was like, that makes sense. And then they did not really do anything else with nose tackle. They treated him like a starter all throughout the offseason, all through training camp, all through the preseason. The only way this would make sense to me would be if through training camp and as preseason started to kick off, the games became real and they got a chance to see Pennel recovering after games or whatever. They were just like, I don't think he has it the way he did, which that's okay. That can happen. One could argue that's a risk you take when you bank on a nose tackle who's in his mid-30s that the floor might fall out. So that makes the process somewhat inexplicable regardless. And then, they supposedly tried to bring in some other people and they'll see what they can do. But that's the only way I can see this making sense is if they thought his play dropped off and they were just like, oh man, what we're seeing from you in camp and in preseason is less than what Derek did last year. If that's the case, okay. Or something really weird happened. Otherwise,
even if that's the case, you went into the season with a 34-year-old starting nose that your backup plan for was Omar Norman Lott, a guy who,
right.
Let me just say again quickly, doesn't play football like Mike Pennel. He was on Mike Pennel in college, and he shouldn't.
And he shouldn't. He shouldn't. Right.
And that's where the process is really, really weird. And it's so weird that when I was tweeting out frustratedly last night, I had Chiefs fans in my mentions making fun of me for not understanding roster construction and not understanding how this was, or maybe it was Tuesday night, how this was a 3D chess move for the IR. And I even quote tweeted someone and be like, I guess that makes the most sense. And then it just didn't happen. So by the way, still waiting on those apologies in my mentions, people. But
yeah, they're all posted on profootballtalk.com.
Yeah, no kidding.
All of those retractions and apologies are all freely available there.
Right. And so there's going to be a bunch of theories about it simply because it doesn't make sense. It seems odd. Now, would it shock me if they signed him in November? No. That wouldn't surprise me at all. You know what we do know, though, Seth, to that point? You know what we do know? Mike Pennell's not in on the bit. Like that, again, go tap through his Instagram story. Because look, to that point, the idea of Mike Edwards is back on the practice squad. Great. I'm sure that's a conversation that was had. Hey, man, you're going to be, this year's Deion Bush, as Deion Bush is on IR. The Robert Tonyan thing, it didn't seem like Big Bob was out there trying to field a bunch of offers, and now he's back on the active 53. That maneuvering makes sense. This also isn't their first year doing this with Mike Pennel. So that dialogue should have, I think, been relatively easy to keep that conversation going. Even if it was like, hey man, you're old for your position, well, you're old for football, and we want to save you the trouble of not being on the field very much until Thanksgiving. So work out for free as a free agent, and then we'll give you a practice squad contract. Then we'll call you up for a few game days. He's not even on the practice squad. He's not even getting a practice squad check. And that's where so many of these things, it doesn't seem like he's in on the bit.
What
either that or they approached him.
They doing? And what are they doing?
And Mike Pennel, nose tackle, isn't. Here's how I'll say this. When you are a Super Bowl contender, it's so easy to because what I've had people reply to me as people kind of try to deal with weird looking things. I get it. Was well, Mike Pennell's not the difference between a Super Bowl and not winning a Super Bowl.
What?
You should really pay attention to that second down, that 2nd and 6, I think it was, in overtime against the Niners in the Super Bowl. And look who it was right next to Tershawn Wharton on a run stuff as Chris Jones was trying to catch his breath on the sidelines. Because that was Mike Pennel.
I also just hate that argument so much because you could completely undercut Brett Veach's entire resume. Oh, he has Patrick Mahomes. Everything else, nothing else matters. He has Patrick Mahomes, and I don't think that's fair.
It's the ultimate team game. Ladies and gentlemen, let's not forget why we all love this sport. All 22 dudes, hell, 25 once you include the specialists, all of them matter. And then they get hurt. Do. And then you got to have more than 25 dudes. And guess what? If one guy makes a mistake on a play, we all understand from pee-wee to the league. One of them 11 guys makes a mistake, you mess it up for everybody, and the other team usually exploits it, especially at this level in the NFL.
Absolutely. And that's the other thing to think about. The rules when you are a Super Bowl contender, a legitimate Super Bowl contender, which the Chiefs are every year, forever and ever, amen. The rules are different because these games in the playoffs are won and lost in the margins. They are won and lost on that, oh man, that great first down stuff where you forklifted, to quote Jake Dennis in the comments, when you forklifted Trent Williams, which he did. And
He did.
Was Mike Pennel even one of the best 10 defensive players on the 2023 defense? No. But it matters if it's even 1 or 2 plays a game. That matters if you're a Super Bowl contender. And that's where I think it frustrates me a little bit is this going to matter that much during the regular season? I don't think so. But one thing that has really helped the Chiefs when in 2022, their defense, they completely revamped stuff. And then they became a good defense. In 2023, they were elite. And last year, they were good. They had a button they could push whenever they wanted to be good against the run. Now, part of that button is named Leo Chanel, and that's great. But they had a button they could push that, hey, if once we decide to be good against the run, when we really go for it, then that's what we're going to do. Like, we're going to stop the run. And Mike Pennel was a huge part of that. So a lot of people are asking about his age. Fair enough. But if the age is the issue, then it's worth dogging the process. Then
he's only gotten a little older since the start of training camp.
Yes. And you had him as the starter. Okay, so you saw stuff you didn't like at training camp. So my best theory is that they had an idea, they went in with it, they were comfortable with the roster, and after a preseason game or two, or maybe during a preseason game, I'll be real honest, I haven't ground the film of the preseason games like when the Seahawks were running all over them. Maybe I'll go back and watch the film and be like, whoa, Mike's getting moved in a way he didn't used to. Then I get it, but it doesn't mean
they still have less than they did last year, though. That's the thing that is just like, if they swapped out Mike Pennel for a player who's 10 years younger who played something like his snap count last year, okay, we can talk about whoever that mythical player is. Last year, Mike Pennel played almost 30% of the defensive snaps in the regular season. Derek Nottie played 20% of the Chiefs' defensive snaps in the regular season. Right now, here's the list of competent one-tech defensive linemen on the Chiefs roster right now. Derek Nottie.
And
I'm giving him a lot of credit for last year.
And the Jets said, thanks, but no thanks.
They traded for the guys that the Chiefs would have been calling about. The Jets traded for 2 defensive tackles and then gave the Chiefs back Derek Nottie, who is the only guy in that spot right now.
Right.
You're either asking Jerry Tillery or Chris Jones or Omar Norman-Lott to play out of position. One of those guys is also old and elite. One of those guys is in a little bit of a reclamation year, and one of those guys is a rookie with an ankle injury. I just can't believe there's not. And again, there's not a practice squad sneaky thing there either, because if Marlon Tuipulotu was impressive, he'd be on the 53.
And it was a chance for him or Fabian Lovett to make the team, and neither one of them reached that threshold. So
Mike Pennel played 6 snaps against Seattle, by the way, so don't even worry about that one.
Yeah, I mean it's
12 snaps. He played 12 snaps against Arizona the first 2 drives. He played 6 snaps against Seattle the first 2 drives. I don't have his week 3 snaps in front of me. I don't know how much he was out there, though.
Just let's think about it this way. I don't know what happened in New York, right? It's a new coaching staff. They're trying new things. I understand kind of what they're going for. Derek Nottie, great locker room dude, veteran presence, knows how to play football. The Jets said thanks, but no thanks. And the Chiefs just said thanks, but no thanks to Mike Pennel, who, as we just said, is unquestionably a better player the last 2 years. Now, here's my theory. Yes, it involves age. You really testing loyalty, guys. And you know what? The Patriots used to do this all the time.
Yep.
And I don't know if this is exactly that. So I can't, I'm not saying this as reporting. I'm saying this, I'm theorizing in real time based on me not understanding what the Chiefs just did. You could all, one of the things that traditional teams do is say, hey, if it doesn't work out, you can always cut them. But you kind of want to see what the player has in like weeks 1 through 4, right? And if the player doesn't have it, it hasn't worked out, it's been great. For whatever reason, we got to let you go, right? We've given you plenty of opportunities. The Chiefs didn't do that. Okay, well, okay. Some teams would say, hey, Mike, we thought you were a starter. we're actually going to reduce your role to maximize what you have left. So we might bring somebody in and you might trade it off. There might be a trade-off. Maybe you're a starter, maybe you're not. Starter really don't matter. You're still going to play next to Chris Jones, still going to play next to Mike Dana and George Karlaftis, and like, hey, we're just going to take a slight step back. Maybe we rest your legs halfway through the season so that maybe we ramp you up when it gets cold outside. They didn't do that neither. They did something cold and ruthless, which is the same thing that happened to Mitchell Schwartz, which is the same thing that happened to Eric Fisher on the same day, notably. And they did it on cut down day instead of basically the start of free agency.
And
what the Patriots would always do is say, we're never going to say a bad word, but not right now. And so they're testing the player's loyalty, even though that's not what the player signed up for. It's not what the team signed up for. And hey, because of your age, because of your position, because of circumstances, we don't think anybody's going to call you. Hell, we don't think anybody's going to pick you up. We'd rather be a year early than a year late.
Yep.
And we'll see if you're still loyal if we call you back. That's my theory, is that the Chiefs were like, we don't want this 34-year-old to break down on us, even though he's been extremely loyal, important for all the reasons we discussed earlier. But also, we think you're the last stop in the league.
And I just to put a bow on it, because I know we're wrapping up. It makes the process bizarre of relying on him in May, or in March. That's what makes it odd to me. And so that's what makes me think that they kind of just, I think, got caught with their pants down a little bit. If they looked at the film and they saw some slippage, fair enough. And I get it, but this is like, man,
it's the preseason.
Right. And like I said, I'm just trying to find, I can't think of another logical explanation for why, if the age thing is an issue, it's not like that snuck up on them. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like, I was going to do a bit, but we're running out of time. So for me, it doesn't seem like a good process. And it's just unfortunate because you win and lose games in the margins. Now, here's hoping. I hope Derek Nottie can come back, recover a little more of his, early career form, being really stout against the run. Then fair enough. It doesn't seem like Mike Pennel's on board with what's happening. So maybe they told him, look, it's a numbers game. We kind of want to do this. Board? We saw a little something, and we just can't even keep you on the practice squad because we got to keep someone else there. And he disagreed, and they said, look, this is what we feel like we have to do. Just keep in mind, and I don't blame players for this, I don't blame teams for it either. It's a business. And if this is what the team thought they had to do.
The Patriots told Super Bowl champion, excuse me, who was the safety that they told after winning the Super Bowl? Was it Malloy? They told Malloy, get out.
Yeah, Lawyer Malloy, Seymour.
Lawyer Malloy, get out.
It's just the process here wasn't clean. And so we'll see what happens in the regular season. I just worry about finding that level against run-heavy teams because Pennell's been a big part of that. So the guys they've got in-house got a lot to show. And, man, Leo, hope you've been working out. But who am I kidding? Leo's been working out.
But that's you hit on it there at the end there, Seth. Where it's, again, if they would have drafted two defensive tackles and they had a Keandre Coburn type in the 6th or whatever, like, well, he's kind of a run stuffer. We think he's gonna, we're gonna throw some numbers at this thing, and Mike Pennel just didn't make the number cut. We wouldn't be talking about it quite the same way because those guys would have been getting reps in training camp. Right. Derek Nottie's reps were coming in New York, and they didn't want him anymore, and he's the only guy in that spot right now. I don't know. I would say Chris Jones. I hope you've been working out. Also, obviously, he has, but like, man. It feels like for the second year in a row, the Chiefs are about to ask a player in their mid-30s to play an ungodly number of snaps. And last year it was Travis Kelce, and this year it might be Chris Jones. I'm just like, all right, man, keep eating your Wheaties. I hope they have a better nutrition plan than that, because he's going to need it. It's really interesting. Again, the guys they have on the practice squad, I think, are somewhat intriguing, but now it's brand new players a week before the season starts. I'm like, probably not in week 1. Probably not. So if the difference between Marlon Tuipulotu and Mike Pennel is closer than we thought it was, I just would have thought we would have seen some evidence of that by now and how they use them. It's fascinating. We'll see if anything changes. Certainly we'll talk about it on Tuesday. One more weekend without NFL football. And then this time next week, we're going to be doing a preview of Chiefs Chargers in Brazil about 24 hours before that game kicks off. So we'll take a little time. We'll talk to you again on Tuesday. Also, some very fun things are happening on Tuesday's show that I'm not going to say anything else about. And we'll look forward to that. In the meantime, Nate, get us out of here.
All right, I've been thinking about this, right? All right, guys. Now, look, we know that we didn't really have a Camp Darling outside of Robert Tunyon, and so we don't usually get to do this bit, and that's fine. I just want to remind you guys that Nico Remigio made the roster. Made the roster rather easily, too. With Tyquan Thornton in the mix as well. Thank you, Jackie Moon. I'm not saying he's going to be this person, because he's not. This person was drafted. So it's not a great comparison, but like there's a chance based on what we saw in the postseason last year that Nico Remigio has a moment in the upcoming season because of his stature, because of his size. Now, he doesn't have breakaway speed. We all know this. He's got to be creative in the way he returns. I just think he could have a moment early in the season because for everything that he did, he looks like someone who is maxing out right now, right at the right time. And I'm fascinated to see how Dave Toub uses him. Obviously, there's a kickoff rule. There's punt returns. What if something happens in Brazil? So incrementally, Nico Remigio went from, hey, that might be an interesting priority free agent to the guy made the 53 in 3 years' time. Just something I don't think we want to totally forget about. Because, guys, he might be the first person who touches the football to start the 2025 Kansas City Chiefs season.
He also might be their number 2 run-stuffing defensive tackle. Talk to you on Tuesday.
He honestly might make sense.